And we are live. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all, if I could see you all. I'm at a meeting today, so Miss Beltran is graciously subbing for us again. Hi, Miss Beltran. So let's start with this. Let us always meet each other with smile. For the smile is the beginning of love. These are the words of Mother Teresa, and these words can change our life if we allow them to. So what I would like you to do is turn to your neighbor, multiple neighbors, and give them the biggest, cheesiest smile you can. Go! I'm serious. Turn to your neighbor. Give them the biggest, cheesiest smile you can. Like that. You should be smiling at your neighbor still. Hold it. Hold that cheesy grin. Make it huge. Show them your teeth. Alright, it is so important that we smile. I cannot emphasize it enough. It's so good for our health. And to make you smile, baby's laughing. This baby's funny, but also kind of scary. Oh my gosh. Oh, that is funny. Hey, we'll stop with that baby. But, no we won't. We'll return to that baby. Alright. For our schedule, I'm going to talk about Chapter 16 and what we're going to be doing for the next 2.5 weeks. And then we're going to go into the Enlightenment. And then you'll be doing some document analysis and description. So let's look at two schedules. Let's look at your school schedule. Here's your month. So here's us today, the 2nd. You'll notice we don't have too many classes because of a lot of things. So the 2nd and the 6th, those are only B days this week. And the next week we have the Getty field trip on the 10th. Make sure you get your permission slip in, which means we don't see each other outside of the field trip for a week because we have a school holiday on the 11th. So you are going to have online assignments and you're going to have readings that are due even though we don't see each other throughout these time periods. And then we're going to conclude the unit on the 18th. So we actually only have 1, 2, 3, a comet day, and then we're concluding the unit on the 18th. So let's see what you're actually doing. So here's the unit plan, and I don't want to go into too much detail, just to let you know that you have the whole unit before you here. Each day is divided up, and you have certain primary source documents to read, and other documents as well, and then a couple of online lectures. So a note about the online lectures. After an online lecture, a pop quiz is always fair game. They'll be very easy pop quizzes, but you need to make sure that you know the material. Alright, the purpose is to make sure you do the lectures and then get credit for doing the work. So pop quizzes are fair game. Day 3, we'll continue our work on the long essay. We're not going to do anything with it today besides collect your outline. So I'll have Miss Beltran collect your outline in 1 minute. Some things to note. Day 4. It's on your own. This actually isn't a class. This is all online work. So everything here you're going to need to do on your own and then have completed for class on the 13th. And then the day of the 13th, we'll be having a Socratic seminar. And then the Comet Day, November 16th, Socratic seminar and review for the test. So we'll finish whatever we need to for Socratic seminar. And then the last day of the unit, November 18th, you'll have your first as close to an AP exam as we can get. We're going to remove this multiple choice test. It's going to be a DBQ and an FRQ. So it'll be a summative assessment, all written. Okay? This you have, we'll go over this in a little bit, but that's the general directions and points for the unit. Alright, so what you need now is to flip the page to the Enlightenment Study Guide. We're going to work through this together, and that's what you need in front of you. So take a minute, grab that, and I will be right back. Oh, and please, Miss Beltran, at this point, would you collect their long essay outline? It's just the one page with your brainstorm and your outline notes for the long essay. Alright, we're back. So Miss Beltran has collected this, which has the backside as well. Thank you, Miss Beltran. We leave that on my desk. And let's go and begin the unit. So a little background. This isn't on your study guide. This would be background from your other study guide for the scientific revolution. Couple of things, big ideas. The scientific revolution broke down 1,000-year-old beliefs. So these traditional beliefs that have stood for centuries, millenniums actually, like Aristotelian theories such as geocentrism, that the Earth was the center of the universe. It's broken down because of science. So the scientific revolution challenged traditions and systems, which is very difficult. When systems are in place, they're very powerful, and you have to be a person of great courage to stand against that. So the church and the intellectual world, universities and colleges, all preached these things like geocentrism, and the new natural philosophers, or the scientists as they're called, they had to challenge those systems and not just come up with new ideas, but they had to go against a system that existed and said that's not true. New discoveries and methods through observing and studying the natural world. So, for example, gravity is discovered, and modern physics are developed because of Sir Isaac Newton and his work. Empiricism and the scientific method that you still use in science class today comes from Bacon and his ideas about deductive reasoning. Scientific revolution, how did it happen? One of the biggest things, in order to go against traditional beliefs and discover new things, one has to have these things. Courage. You don't get it from reading books that don't teach it. So because it's not taught at the college or university, they had to have the courage to go against the status quo. Experimentation, at this time, Newton and other natural scientists are observing and making experiments in the natural world to discover new things. Strong research skills. You got to understand what did exist in terms of old traditions, such as the Greek philosophers and their ideas about science, and then you got to go against the grain. And the determination, and most of all, I'm going to argue this blank, and this is such an important thing, imagination. And to illustrate the point that you had to have an imagination, because think about it, gravity, you don't understand it in terms of, you can't really see it. You have to have an imagination to believe it exists. So to illustrate the point, one of my favorite movies, Hook. So if you know the story of Hook, it's a story about a man who's lost his imagination, and because of that, he can't fly, and he can't imagine a world outside of what he's been taught, what society has taught him. And I think that's an excellent representation of the scientific revolution. If you weren't willing to use your imagination, you could have never discovered things like gravity. You would have just continued with traditional beliefs that would be taught to you forever. And that's the great idea of the scientific revolution. It's about our imaginations. But don't forget, this is science and God together. Science and God can coexist still today and back then, and even more so back then. The natural scientists still maintain their devout faith. What they did was they discovered natural laws or laws of nature, and this proved to them the existence of God who put all things in order. So what they were discovering brought them even closer to God, is what many of these natural philosophers called natural scientists believed. Which brings us to the Enlightenment. And the reason we did the background on the scientific revolution, because the scientific revolution directly led to the Enlightenment. But before we get there, let's take a look. And this is where your study guide picks up. So one of the most famous Enlightenment thinkers, Immanuel Kant. And if you tell people you're reading Kant, you're going to be in an elite group of sophomores. Not too many people are reading this until they get to college. But what he said is, enlightenment is man's emergence from his self-imposed nonage. Fill in the blank, nonage. Nonage is the inability to use one's own understanding without another's guidance. This nonage is self-imposed if its cause lies not in lack of understanding, but in indecision and lack of courage to use one's own mind without another's guidance. What is he talking about? Think for 1 minute by yourself about what Kant is saying here. I don't want you to talk to anybody. Miss Beltran, make sure it's silent for 1 minute, starting now. Here's the key right here. Knowledge is the inability to use one's own understanding without another's guidance. What Kant is saying, which I hope you're coming to recognize here, is that we have to think on our own. But that takes courage. It's scary because our entire life we're guided by people who will guide us to an answer. But he's saying real thinking, true understanding, lies in the courage to think for oneself without another's guidance. That is beautiful, and let that be our motto. Have the courage to use your Have the courage to use your own understanding. Kant says true knowledge, true understanding can only come when we're willing to have the courage to think for ourselves. So let's make that our Enlightenment motto. Have the courage to use your own understanding. Let's think for ourselves. The Enlightenment idea is 1650 to 1800. That's a general time period. What is it? It's the use of reason and science to explain life instead of just religion and tradition. As we've been talking about, just like the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment had its roots in traditional beliefs about people that had existed forever. And they had to break a lot of that down through new ideas. Where does it come from? Scientific revolution. It showed there was order and law to the natural world. And if there's order and law to the natural world, the philosophes, a French word, otherwise known as philosophers, applied that idea to society, the social world. Maybe there are laws, they thought, that govern the social world, just like there are scientific laws that govern the natural world. So to summarize, advancements in science, the natural world, leads to advancements in thought about the social world, the Enlightenment. So which came first? The scientific revolution. Which came second? The Enlightenment. It's the application of scientific principles to people. Values of the Enlightenment. So these 5 things are in your notes. Make sure you get these recorded. Reason. Used to explain the social world. So things are governed by this idea of reason. Things must be reasonable. You can put them in order. That was one of the main ideas of the scientific revolution and now the Enlightenment. Science. Laws govern the natural world, and laws must govern the social world also. Progress. Humans can learn from the past and achieve progress. It's a time of hope in a lot of ways because of these progressions in science. They thought if we can apply that to the social sciences, maybe we can progress as a society. Progress. Liberty. The rise of individual and human liberties. Equality and rights. I'm sorry, women are still seen by a lot of the philosophes as lesser than and inferior still. So it's a rise of individual and human liberties, but it applies mostly to men and not yet for women. That doesn't come until thinking in the 19th and 20th century, but don't think that not anyone is thinking that way. We're going to read about Mary Wollstonecraft this unit and her ideas, early feminist ideas, and her early essays on feminism. And finally, toleration. So religious toleration promoted by many of the philosophes. This is a very new idea in terms of you should not just promote your own religion, but learn to tolerate the religions of others and learn from others. So pause it if you need to get all these notes, but I'm moving forward to the next one. So the philosophes. Let's talk about these gentlemen and make sure you outline this in your notes. This is not a misspelling. The word is philosophe. It's a French word for philosopher. So a lot of the ideas come from France, such as this word during the Enlightenment. And a philosophe equals an enlightened philosopher or an Enlightenment philosopher because it refers to a specific time period, the Enlightenment. General agreement on certain things. So the philosophes agreed that limiting institutions were the clergy and the monarchy. Let me jump to your notes and make sure we're on the same page. So the Enlightenment Study Guide. Here we are. Freedom, limiting institutions. Over here we have the church or the clergy and the monarchy. So most philosophes were anti-clerical. They were against the influence of a hierarchical church and a hierarchical monarch. Okay? Alright, so we're on the same page. And these are the 2 ideas about religion, and it began to change slightly. So natural religion, looking to nature for ideas about religion, became known as this, deism. And a definition for this is the knowledge of God comes from observing the natural world and drawing conclusions. So like the scientific revolution, look to the natural world and draw conclusions about God that way. And what people begin to go against in the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment is this idea of revealed religion or traditional Christianity. Knowledge of God comes from religious leaders, miracles, prophecies, sacred texts, and dogma. People begin to challenge this idea and say, no, not so much. Let's look to the natural world and reach our own conclusions about faith. So it's faith based in observations in the natural world as opposed to being told what to believe from tradition. Deism. This slide got messed up, but that should read deism, and it's about looking to nature and the natural world, or natural religion. So philosophes such as Voltaire and others began to challenge traditional ideas of Christianity based on scientific observation and the observations of nature. Alright, so the Enlightenment is about ideas. It's about a world of ideas. And Paris becomes the cultural and intellectual capital of Europe. So the ideas of the Enlightenment begin to spread rapidly throughout Paris. One of the reasons for this is because of these gatherings called salons. And these essentially are parties hosted by wealthy women of France, notably Maria Therese Giaffren was considered the greatest party planner and host, and she would invite the philosophers, the philosophers, the writers, the artists, and other great intellects of Paris to come and discuss ideas. And they'd sit around her estate and they would discuss these new ideas known as the Enlightenment. So Paris becomes the center for all of this. I'm going to let you work through who's who of the Enlightenment. So the chart needs to be completed, and you need to look, for instance, Newton's little background. You don't have to get him, but Locke, you want to get his major ideas, and then you also want to get one of his major works, Two Treatises of Government, and when he lived, and where. If it doesn't say, it should. It doesn't. Okay, I'll tell you. Locke's from England. Voltaire's from France. Diderot's from France. And I'll let you go through this on your own. Montesquieu's French. Rousseau, Swiss. So he's from Switzerland. Adam Smith, he's English. And you can work through this on your own to get the notes for each character. And then this is your last slide for your study guide, Women in the Enlightenment. And I'll let you work through this on your own as well, because I want to get to your directions for your documents. So we're going to move into document analysis. So document 16.1, we're going to start here with Voltaire on Chancellor Bacon. So he's describing what he thinks of Bacon. So I'm going to have you flip to this, please. You can pause the video and flip to this. And then I'm going to give you the directions for how we're going to work through each document. For each document, 1, your active reading strategy. We're going to use this strategy called HPAN. Historical connections, past and present. So you're looking for any connections to past units, major themes. Age of exploration. Looking to themes of the Renaissance or the Reformation or our major units we've covered so far. And present. Ideas related to the scientific revolution would be mostly present. Personal connections, your life. You always want to be engaging the text. Why? Because that's how we remember things. If we don't make connections to our personal life, we don't remember. And all aha moments, meaning when you discover something, make a note of it. Because in this text, you're going to discover a lot of things. And make sure you're writing notes in the margin. Our focus is the interpretation of each bolded section. So here's your setup. On a note card, if you have 5x7 or larger note cards, those are great, or a blank sheet of paper will work. What you want to do is write down the document name, and then we're going to go through and do the first one together. But basically you're going to interpret the bolded sections. You're going to write your own interpretation. And then part of the grade for this unit that I didn't go over, I'll go over with you right now, is this. For each reading, 16.1 through 16.7, you need to answer all questions on a large note card or full sheet of paper. I can't talk anymore, and that's okay. After each reading, the questions will be collected, so I'll collect the questions the next day, and I'll choose randomly 2 questions for each reading. You'll be given a score out of 5 points. So since there are actually 8 readings, the largest portion of your grades before the final exam for this unit will come from these quizzes. The purpose is primary sources are really important, and I want to make sure you're doing a good job answering these questions. So this is your accountability for those questions, and I'll grade 2 randomly, and this is the guide. You'll get a score 1 to 5, and you can read through that to make sure you understand what's expected of you. But let's go through the first one together. So on a sheet of paper, you've recorded document 16.1 and number 1. So we want to go to the actual document 16.1, and we're looking for number 1. So here it is, and this is the bolded section. So our job is to interpret, what does he mean here? So I'll read this to you. Again, take notes in the margin. That's the best way. I'll talk you through it and suggest a couple notes in the margin, but let's get started. It is not long. Fudge. Yep. Alright, let's start right here. It's not long since the ridiculous and threadbare question was agitated in a celebrated assembly. Who was the greatest man, Caesar or Alexander? Tamerlane or Cromwell? So stop right there. Names I imagine you recognize. Caesar, we're talking about Romans, so in the margin, Romans. Cromwell, you're racking your brain thinking, where does he come from? Oh, yeah, I remember last unit. English constitutionalism, talked about Oliver Cromwell. So notes to make. And then here's our bolded section, which we want to think about what is the interpretation or what's the point here. Somebody said that it must be undoubtedly be Sir Isaac Newton. Okay, so connection to the present, Newton, father of physics. This man was certainly in the right, for if true greatness consists in having received from heaven the advantage of a superior genius, with the talent of applying it for the interests of the possessor and of mankind, a man like Newton, and such a one is hardly to be met with in 10 centuries, is surely by much the greatest. And those statesmen and conquerors, which no age has ever been without, are commonly but so many illustrious villains. Okay, so a couple things here. Number one, we know Voltaire is saying that Sir Isaac Newton is a great man. He's saying he possesses superior genius. Superior to who? These people that he's comparing. So he starts with these conquerors. So he's comparing Newton and these conquerors, and he says, such a one is hardly to be met with in 10 centuries, in the last 1,000 years. He must be the greatest. And those statesmen and conquerors, Caesar and Alexander and others, which no age has ever been without, they always have, your conquerors, your warriors, are commonly but so many illustrious villains. So what are they? He says they're villains. They're not great men. It's actually the scientists who are the great men, such as Newton. Oh, interesting. So if we were to go to our notes here, which I'm going to, what would my interpretation be? Voltaire, and please do write this, believes Newton is a genius. His scientific discoveries are much greater than any of the conquerors, such as Caesar, because of, and why? Why are they so valuable? Well, he says something that stood out. The advantage of superior genius with the talent of applying it for the interests of the possessor and of mankind. So who benefits? Well, the possessor himself. When you create knowledge, you benefit, but mankind. So his ideas benefit mankind because of benefits, and I should be more specific, because of its science, in this case physics, because he's the father of modern physics, because of its benefits to mankind. Voltaire believes Newton is a genius. His scientific discoveries are much greater than any of the conquerors, such as Caesar, because of its benefits to mankind. His discoveries, their benefits to mankind. So, that's what your paper or your note card will want to read, and then you continue on, continue to make notes in the margin. Don't skip this, because all of this helps you understand number 2. So you go on and you continue to read, continue to take notes, and then number 2, you focus on the meaning here. And I'm reading. I'll stop. Alright, I'll let you go on your own. So here's how we're going to do this. I want you, before you do anything with a partner, because you're going to be working with a partner at certain points on this, I want you to just read. So before you return to your PowerPoint and complete your outline, I want you to continue with this reading on your own for 20 minutes straight, just you and the reading. So your goal is to get through 16.1. If you get done, you're moving on to 16.2. Get done with that, 16.3. And all of them have questions. Some have 4 or 5, some have 6 or 7, but make sure you answer all of them in that same format. Alright, so 20 minutes, and then you'll get with your partners. Okay, so pause the video here, and you have 20 minutes to begin working on these documents on your own. Alright, now that you've gone over those documents, I want you to review some of your thoughts with a partner. So these are your partnerships. Take a look and spend, let's say, 7 minutes. 7 minutes. Go over your ideas on Voltaire, on Bacon first, and make sure you're on the same page in terms of your interpretations. And then if you get to a point where you guys are ready to move on together, you can go on to document 16.2 and begin talking or reading about that together. After 7 minutes, Miss Beltran, students, you are on your own for the rest of the period, and you have these things for homework. Let me show you. So you have documents 16.1, 16.2, 16.3, and then Socratic Seminar readings numbers 1 through 3. So those are at the end of the packet after the documents, and you need to do the first readings numbers 1 through 3, answer the questions, and then also for homework, since I don't see you till Friday, you got quite a bit of homework, so make sure you space it out. This is at least 2 hours, 2.5 hours of homework, maybe 3 realistically, but you've got 4 days to do it. And actually, if you get a lot done in class, it's not that much. It's maybe an hour and a half. So you watch this lecture, and then I'll post the review for the lecture as well. And there will be a pop quiz over this lecture and the Enlightenment and the Philosophes on Friday. Don't study a lot. Just make sure you review your study guide once after watching the lecture. Alright, have a great day. I will talk to you guys soon. If you have any questions, email me, or I'll be back at school around 12:30. Goodbye.